My name is Brian Pinaire, and I'm an associate professor of political science at Lehigh University. I have a PhD from Rutgers University, and my focus is on public law. I teach constitutional law and civil liberties and criminal justice courses both at the undergraduate and graduate levels, and have done so for 9 or 10 years since I've been here. In the wake of Citizens United, which was issued in 2010, and people following it, this issue, and people who could, I think, prognosticate and think about what its implications might be, saw this as potentially having really profound consequences for American politics. But in advance of a presidential election there, you're 2 years ahead of the general election, I think it was still abstract. But at this particular point, in the late winter and the early spring of 2012, now we have really seen, either in the form of Mitt Romney's super PACs and his elaborate spending, or even on for Newt Gingrich with one particularly wealthy individual who is funding him. I think you are seeing exactly the consequences that those who were critical of it imagined, and maybe even those who were supporters of it imagined, because it could be precisely the kind of political vision that they imagine, in the sense that you shouldn't be restricting the rights of certain parties just by the way that the government designates them, and that this would lead logically to the Mitt Romney argument that corporations are people too, which legally corporations have been construed as having rights for quite some time now. But in the political sphere, because of the potential for an excessive, if you will, volume coming from corporations in the form of their quote-unquote voice in the political process by virtue of their vast treasuries, you've had a lot of concern that they're going to outweigh the voices of ordinary individuals. And now we are seeing in this election the first really serious wholesale implementation of what is allowed under Citizens United. And I think that is going to, we don't know which way this is going to go. You could imagine people who were critical of who are critical of the decision, still in the end seeing, well, President Obama won, so maybe it's not such a big deal. If it goes the other way, and people on usually the left, or who are reformers of campaign finance laws, if they see that this leads to a Republican victory, obviously that's going to change the calculation, and it could increase the volume for some sort of contemplation of the decision, or some reevaluation of whether or not it was in fact correct or not. I have evolved a little bit in my views. I wrote extensively on this issue, and was for a long time of the mindset that we needed to equalize opportunities in the political process, which would, in my mind, encourage even more significant restrictions on corporations. I've changed now in the sense I'm still quite troubled by this, but I've also come to the point where I've almost thrown up my hands in exasperation with all of the various ways that we have tried to patch together this campaign finance tapestry of laws that tries to stifle the voices of people that we think are going to have detrimental effects, or companies, to the political process. And it seems to me that the old notion of water finding its way through various cracks and money being the equivalent of that it gets in somehow. And I almost come to the point where I say all of the elaborate laws and restrictions and requirements from the Federal Election Commission that we have, and all the things that candidates have to do, and all the rules, it's almost too cumbersome now. And I have almost come to the point, and maybe I am at the point, where I just say, as long as we have disclosure across the board, where we get to know who the money's coming from and how, at least at some level, it has to be filed with someone, then I almost am saying, well, maybe we need to just scrap the whole thing and just let it all play out. And I do think that even people who are maybe of the inclination to support Democratic candidates, or people who are on the political left, if that's the case, can look to see that in 2008, Barack Obama raised more money than any candidate in history. So this is not to say that this is going to necessarily or inherently benefit one party. It is just to say that politics and money, they just go together, and money's the mother's milk, and it just keeps finding its way. So while the intentions of those who want to reform the process I sympathize with and a long time believed in, I have now wondered whether or not that's even logistically possible at all.